I guess as we are at this point, I mean, I think everyone has been arrived at the conclusion that this renewal was coming. It's still the particulars, the details that everyone is looking toward. Fightful Select has had some updates in this regard, in the sense of what is to be included in the deal. Fightful Select and Beyond the Bell, learning that Dynamite and Collision expected to be simulcast on Max beginning in January. They added that there will be some integration of AEW pay-per-views for Max subscribers, though not sure if those will be included with a subscription or at some discounted rate as well, with early indications that True TV and Rampage were not included in the upcoming announcement.
Which implies that Rampage is moving to True TV?
That's certainly one way of looking at it, certainly, would be... That would be,
and again, this is from Fightful this morning.
Yes, this was just a few hours ago as well, reporting from Andrew Zarian and Sean Ross Sapp. And yeah, it just seems like they're just simply getting ready for a release at any time that could come today. Makes a lot of sense that you would have that as, your late afternoon announcement going into Dynamite tonight, and probably some kind of segment with Tony Khan on the show tonight, and terms of celebrating this big announcement. And then the next question will be in the days that follow, if a number gets kind of reported out as well. I don't expect that to be part of the formal announcement from WBD or AEW, unless
I think when we've seen WWE announcemans of TV deals, we have, I think, like within the same day where there's a report with somebody reporting what the value of the deal is. Who knows if that will happen here? I'm afraid we're not going to get all of our questions answered, maybe some of them, but I think what the Fightful report is alluding to is that there may be some sort of deal for Rampage, perhaps on True TV is one way to read it. Maybe that won't be included in today's announcement. I know people are wondering, speculating about AEW possibly having another deal, possibly with Fox. I would be surprised if that gets answered today as well.
Because this is going to feel like this is going to be multiple deals. Like, it feels like today would be the television announcement, and will we get any concrete information about the pay-per-view component of all of this? Perhaps it's all just bundled together in today's announcements. And of course, there's the lingering report from a sports journalist, Swerve Strickland, as well, about the potential of a deal on Fox, which it sounds like he didn't exactly know he was being recorded as he shared this. And I mean, you can take that for what you will.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's just like a belief that he has, or if that's something that he truly has intimate knowledge of. But yeah, we could have all of our arguments resolved today, potentially, if we get a value of what John Rorand reported a few weeks ago of $170 million AAV. And there's a way to read the more obvious way to read Orand's report from a few weeks ago is that $170 million AAV would be just for the Warner Brothers Discovery portion, and that they were shopping a separate deal to broadcast, and that's perhaps where Fox would fit in. And maybe we will end all the arguments today, and AEW may be officially, maybe financially viable.
I think that should be the headline. AEW may be potentially financially viable after today's news. And
everyone will be satisfied. There will be no skeptics out there. They will all be proven wrong, and they will admit that they were wrong about doubting that AEW would get a deal that would make them profitable.
How many YouTube channels are going to shut down tomorrow? How many are just going to say, you know what, we got it wrong. We're sorry. It's over. We're shutting down.
I mean, it could impact the Google stock. We'll have to watch that.
Oh, I can't wait. So yeah, we're kind of in wait and see mode for all of this. I mean, as you go back to 2019, Brandon, and if you're looking ahead to them being on the precipice of this announcement, I think you could. It's kind of this winding road for AEW that I would say a year into this, I think it greatly exceeded expectations of what this was going to be when they held that first Dynamite show. Certainly, they came out of the gate with a lot of buzz. It was at such a down period for WWE in terms of a consumer confidence level. And then you hit the pandemic. They sustained that through being able to get a brand new deal early on, well, at least updated deal points in early 2020. And then 2021, they truly hit their popularity peak with the signing of Punk, the signing of Danielson, and then they have gone through, some definite tumult over the last 12 to 18 months. But as we are here, like, would this greatly exceed the optimist view of that AEW consumer in 2019 to where they are 5 years in?
I don't think so. I think unless, it depends on who you ask. By that framing, I was a big AEW optimist and am. If you don't look in the comments of this video though, and I think that it was and is in a good position to be a viable business. And I think there's really only room for two wrestling companies that are really in a position to be viable businesses of anywhere near this scale, and that's WWE and AEW. For everybody else, there's slim pickings for what the media value is that you're able to extract, and there's a lot of other players playing in that, including NWA and MLW, and they're still around. They're still being funded. I don't know if they're profitable, but they haven't gotten real strong TV deals yet that make it obvious. In 2021, their popularity peaked. Their popularity really grew for the first couple of years of their existence, and I think there were probably a lot of people who underestimated the demand that there was for a better wrestling product, which WWE was not providing. And AEW's popularity, conversely, has leveled off, to say the least, coinciding with the timing at which that people have become more satisfied with WWE's product, as Vince McMahon has been removed from W Creative and Paul Levesque has taken it over, basically. But I think this was a business plan that made a lot of sense as Tony Khan looked at the deals that were made by WWE in 2018, knowing something about the sports media rights market and looking at, hey, WWE just more than tripled their rights in 2018. And maybe there is an opportunity in terms of both the ability to make a great deal in this 5-year plan, which we're at the precipice of, combined with the opportunity to obtain all of this talent that was becoming available in the form of Cody and the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. Eventually, CM Punk came along too. And I think it made a lot of sense. And I think for a long time, people believed that nothing could ever hold a candle to Vince McMahon's WWE. And here we have a promotion that is a distant number 2, but is about to become, or maybe if the ink is on the paper, there is a finalized deal that will, at least for the term of whatever this deal is, a few years at least, is going to make it in all likelihood viable and self-sustaining.
I think that at the beginning of this, first of all, like, this was a venture that, from day one was going to be one that this was going to be, this was not going to be a profit-making venture for the first number of years for AEW. I think they got so ahead of things out of the gate that it raised everyone's expectation of the viability. The timing, you could argue, could not have been more perfect for not just the talent that lined up to be available, coming off this great independent boom and the buzz attached to it, a great dissatisfaction with the WWE product. And the question we had was, in this era of television rights fees skyrocketing, WWE getting to enjoy a portion of that, could a non-WWE wrestling product also find meaningful television revenue? Because we have seen so many attempts at different companies trying to get television and significant rights fees. AEW was the one that was able to kind of cross that threshold and be able to do so with a viable network that had a history with professional wrestling. And I think by like 2020, it's a great what if of the momentum that AEW had going when the pandemic really shut them down. And like, from the get-go, it was live gates was going to be their primary revenue driver at the beginning of this, with that initial deal that was, a fraction of what they would eventually be getting.
Yeah, I don't know what the expectations were from what was then Warner Media, right? For their ratings, but clearly they were good enough to go from whatever the deal was initially, which, I surmise was something like an ad revenue share that might have just covered the cost of production. And then in January 2020, they they basically reworked their deal and had it to include what eventually became Rampage, and it was worth $44 million AAV. That deal is coming to an end at the very end of this year. That deal has got tacked on to it Collision, which we believe includes even more revenue to at least cover the cost of an additional touring show, which is Collision. But yeah, the ratings were good enough to renew, and it's because, you know, mainly it was highly ranked, and it continues to be highly ranked. There, I just had a look at what they were doing for Q3, and they had a median cable primetime original rank of 3. And that's a pretty narrow criteria, but if you look at that over the course of time, it's still, despite the ratings, despite the volume of viewership slipping, the rank has been much more stable.
So we're going to be looking at a television lineup that could be greatly expanded in 2025 between WWE and AEW. You will have Dynamite, Collision, in theory, Rampage. There's the potential of whatever comes out of Swerve Strickland's exclusive
Shockwave, maybe.
negotiating, Shockwave. And then on the WWE front, we very well could be looking at 3 hours of Raw on Monday night or something approximating it on Netflix. There is the rumor mill out there about SmackDown expanding as well. Like, this is going to be, like, in terms of our favorite word, tonnage, we could be hitting unprecedented levels between just these two companies alone in 2025 when all is said and done and all the hours of television are added up on a weekly basis.
Yeah. I like, should we have the conversation around tonnage, which is like, yes, there's a risk. There's a risk in giving your fans, your audience, too much content that's too hard for them to follow, that makes it easier for people to fall off. But is that risk, is that negative? Does that outweigh the positive, which is more payment, more revenue? And I heartlessly lean on the side of it's not a big enough risk.